Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin. And Dan, rocking the Broadway hat. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, I'm full playoff mode, as you can see. Getting ready for the playoffs. Had the pizza ready sent to me from Rosa's. I have Shannon go. I have my sister Shannon going to Rosa's to pick up the pizza because Rosa's is a great pizza place, but that's not far from me. The only thing is they don't deliver. On the flip side, it's not so bad because you don't have to walk too far to get it. So it's not like it's a pain in the ass that they don't deliver because the walk isn't so bad. So you still got that. Plus you can still call in orders. So it's still
Very
like
nice.
Yes, you can still go there, call it in, walk there, pick it up, and it's still good. It's still not that bad, and then worth the 10-minute walk. And my
Not too
sister,
bad.
yeah, not bad. My sister will be coming back with a nice little pizza when we're done here. I'll be eating some pizza and watching a game, and probably having to bring in a ton of napkins because these playoff beards. Every year come playoff time, I think I double maybe increase the amount of fast food napkins I keep on hand in my house, and even in my backpack. That's because I don't have a car. That's the equivalent of the napkins in the glove compartment. It's in my backpack. The front compartment. There's a ton of fast food napkins.
Well, we got I got some pizza on the way to my house too, so it looks like me and you are on the same page tonight. I'm sure a lot of Rangers fans around the tri-state area will be having their pizza too, or whatever they're having tonight, watching this big game one between the Rangers and the Florida Panthers taking place tonight. Puck drops tonight, 8:00, Madison Square Garden. We're about 2 hours away from that right now, as we are currently sitting down to record this episode on Wednesday evening. And obviously the show is going to have a big Rangers theme to it. But you know what? We do have a couple of other things to get to right now before we really dig in and set our sights on this big game one tonight. We've had a lot of time to think about it, as it's been just about 6 days since the Rangers last played, 5 days since the last time the Florida Panthers played. So a lot to get into with that, but I do feel like we should close the book on another season around here before we continue reading on for the New York Rangers, Dan. And unfortunately for us, the season that I'm talking about that is coming to a close is the New York Knicks basketball season. They had a great run that ended, unfortunately, this past Sunday with a Game 7 loss at home, 130-109 to the Indiana Pacers. To make it even worse, to rub salt in the wound, if you will, Jalen Brunson fractures his hand in the third, and that's the last we see of him as he gets hurt in the defeat. Knicks lose and get eliminated at home, but the injury to Brunson is just an extra kick in the ass, right, Dan?
Yeah, that just hurt us, but it just hurt us even more the rest of that game. When Brunson got hurt, that was like, oh, this is gonna be an uphill climb the rest of the game, and it just turned out to the point that I think let's just say it. Our ladies were playing the role of suicide prevention.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely a tough game, especially when it looked like at the end of the first, early on in the second, that this team, uh, was just going to keep fighting. And even though we saw, the Knicks have had a absolute avalanche of injuries, so it looked like early on in this game they were going to be able to fight through and at least persevere to this next series. As I don't know if anybody watched last night, but last night was game one between Boston and Indiana. And man, Indiana put on a good show last night. They were leading 117-114 with 5 seconds left before a late three tied it, and Boston would go on to take it in overtime. They did this all without Kristaps Porzingis in the rotation. So hey, it does look like that if the Knicks did make it, we would have just been in for a pounding here in the conference final. But it still would have been nice to get there. Let's be honest, especially with this team was so banged up by the end. We mentioned Jalen Brunson, who had the fractured hand. Obviously, we know about Mitchell Robinson, who had the stress injury to his lower body that occurred in the 76ers series. Bojan Bogdanovic, which a lot of people forget about, had a couple of pretty good runs early on in the playoffs for the Knicks before he got hurt, hurting his ankle, ending his season prematurely. Josh Hart. Now, Josh Hart played to the end, and he ended up fouling out at the end of Game 7 and got a much-deserved cheer from the Garden faithful because this guy just put it all on the line. Before we even continue with the other guys and the injuries, Dan, you got to give so much credit to Josh Hart. We saw his injury in Game 6 where he was clutching his abdominal muscles. You could tell something was wrong. You could tell the guy was not right and he was hurting. And let's not forget, this was a guy that started the season playing maybe 27, 28 minutes a night on a good night, maybe 30. And he ended up being one of the guys that would routinely play 48 minutes a night. 48. Now let's not forget, this isn't a hockey game where they play a full 60 minutes. Basketball, 48 minutes means you're on the court from starting tip-off to the final whistle. So, you have to give credit to Josh Hart for the toughness he showed down the stretch, right, Dan?
Yeah, you just have to give credit to that. I mean, you just have to give credit to the entire team. And I feel like this team has a lot of upside to get even better next year. I just feel that's what has to happen. I cannot see it. It would be a letdown if any less than that. I feel this team's going to be better next year. I also feel like management, everyone around the Knicks, they'll be doing what they need to do to improve this team. I just feel like they're showing that this team is a team you want to play for finally. That we're finally able to get those players we need now finally. And it's been a long time since I've been able to say that about this Knicks team. Yeah,
man. And obviously the Knicks, there's a lot of questions around them. They do have some certainty right now. They also have a little bit of uncertainty. But from what I hear, and a lot of the reports, well, obviously just to wrap up on the injuries too, we had Julius Randle out with the shoulder and OG with the hamstring, where OG really tried to come back in Game 7 and pull a Willis Reed, and he came back. He played early. He hit a three. He hit a couple of shots early on, but then you could tell that something wasn't right. So OG ended up not playing the rest of the game. So when you look at all these injuries and everything like that, and how, as you mentioned, the Knicks' future is pretty bright for next year. I've seen, obviously, Bogdanovic is a guy that they're going to have to try and bring back. Who knows? He's kind of a luxury late in the season to have. So maybe the Knicks have a different plan in mind. But I'd be very happy to have Bogdanovic back and have that depth in the bench. Josh Hart just signed his extension last year, so he's back here for a while. Obviously, Julius Randle's still under contract. They're going to have to figure out what's going on with OG. OG is a free agent. He's also oftentimes injured. He has a significant injury history. So you have to remember, if the Knicks are bringing him back, you're going to have to manage him or just expect these injuries. So there's a decision to be made there. And then finally, Jalen Brunson, who still has another year or two left on his deal. But from what I've heard, he is now with the way Brunson has played, he would be able to get a max contract. Now, a max contract is about 5 years, $250 million in the NBA. That's a lot more than what Brunson's getting paid right now. But I also heard that Jalen Brunson, because he has enjoyed his time as a Knick so much, that he is willing to sign a contract before then, which can max out at 4 years, $150 million contract. And if you ask me, Dan, I think the Knicks would be stupid to not try to lock him up to the 4 years, 150 as quickly as humanly possible.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel you need to lock this guy up. I feel like this guy's the big star of this generation of Knicks. And this generation of Knicks fans will remember, years from now that they'll talk about the players that they remember. He's one of those guys that they're going to be talking about.
No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. He put his name in the Knicks record book this year, firmly next to guys like Patrick Ewing and Bernard King and any of the other big guys you want to bring up. Willis Reed, Clyde Frazier, Earl the Pearl. Jalen Brunson's name is right in that mix, and maybe not with the championship pedigree of some of the others, but with the postseason performance pedigree, you can't argue with that. And, you mentioned the Knicks' bright future. We were talking about some of the guys and contract decisions. One other thing we have to consider, too, is that the Knicks didn't give up any of their first-round picks for short-sighted trades at the trade deadline this year. They still have 3 first-round picks this year. However, 2 of them, one is lottery protected from the Pistons, and the other one is top 18 protected from the Mavericks. So both those picks are going to slot back to next year. So the Knicks still have that value, and they have the ability to trade it and get more big time players in here to help take this team to the next level. So whether you're counting on Julius coming back next year, or they have a plan B, or maybe they want to do a little bit of a reshape around Jalen Brunson, Leon Rose has a lot of different options he can go with right now, right, Dan?
Yeah, he's got so many options. So I just feel like they're really in the right good position to make those moves they need to do to get to the next level.
Yeah, you're right. And you see right now the class of the NBA is looking like the Boston Celtics as they take on the Indiana Pacers. So I'll be keeping an eye on that series. And hopefully next year, for the first time in 25 years, the Knicks will be in the conference final as well. But on that note, let's keep things rolling along here right now. We'll keep the Rangers as the main course. So let's do a couple of other things real quick before we get into that. One other thing a lot of people might not even be paying attention to right now in New York, where there's a lot of other things going on at the moment, specifically sports-wise. But the Giants and Jets are running their OTAs this week. So if you're a football fan, you're seeing a lot of these rookies on the field for the first time with the more proven veterans, mixing them in, the OTAs, the off-season training. This is exactly what they want right now. We're about 2 months away, right? About 2 months away prior to the start of training camp. It usually is around July 20th, give or take a couple of days. So I'm sure that's in the back of their mind now too. Football is right around the corner, coming up quicker than people even think. And with these OTAs, man, it's good to see these guys back on the field. Have you seen any of it yet?
I've seen a little bit on the Giants website. I've been looking on and off. So far, looking good. I'm looking forward to seeing, maybe keeping a good eye on how Daniel Jones meshes with Malik Neighbors, because I feel like the passing game is going to be a big factor on the Giants this year, especially with Saquon Barkley gone. There's going to be a lot more passing plays that are going to be happening.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed that, Dan. because a lot of it is on Daniel Jones. And I got to say, we've been getting some pretty good reports back from the Giants early on so far. As I saw that Daniel Jones has looked pretty good, specifically today. I know that there's more coming tomorrow, but the reports I saw of him working out with wide receivers Wan'Dale Robinson, who was on the team last year, and also the rookie, the number 6 overall pick, Malik Neighbors, was working out pretty well with Jones right now. And if, one of the main things that we criticized the Giants with last year was even when Daniel Jones was healthy, their wide receiver room was not very good. They had a lot of bodies in there. They didn't have a lack of people taking up room in the wide receiver room, but they really didn't have any high end talent. Now, Wan'Dale Robinson looked more like one of their more promising receivers last year, but he battled staying on the field at times with injuries and slow play at times. But Malik Neighbors, man, that's the guy. Neighbors and Robinson, if you could keep these guys on the field at the same time, you're going to have 2 dual threats that Daniel Jones desperately needs in this Giant offense.
Yeah, that's correct. That's going to be the whole. It's going to be the whole big thing that's going to really be the it factor of the season, and I can't wait to see how this turns out. Also, I have to say another big thing is the entire offensive line being able to protect the quarterback. I just feel they left Daniel Jones open too much during the last season. I feel it almost made it easy for him to get injured the way they left him open.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it, man. I mean, that's what we saw on both sides of MetLife last year. The Jets' offensive line was, basically a black hole that killed Aaron Rodgers' season 4 plays into the year, and the Giants' offensive line didn't do a great job of protecting Daniel Jones either, because by the time the Jets and the Giants game rolled around in Week 7, Daniel Jones was so beat up too, his season was over as well. So, just goes to show you that these shoddy offensive lines, people can make excuses for them all you want all off season, but as soon as that gun fires and you're ready to go out there and play games that actually matter, your offensive line is so ridiculously key. I always think, when I think of big time offensive lines, obviously a lot of people always go back to the Tom Brady O lines, where he just basically could set up a coffee table back there and drink a cup of tea before he decided to throw the pass and take as long as he wants. But, when you think of hard-working offensive lines that really had to establish themselves, where people really didn't think too much of them, I always think of those Giant championship offensive lines from the late 2000s, like from between 2007 and 2011, that Tom Coughlin had and Eli Manning had. Because if you remember, in 2006, those Giants offensive lines were much maligned. People were talking a lot of trash about them. People had no faith in that Giant offensive line. And then from between 2007 and 2011, they turned themselves into one of the best units in the entire league. And that just goes to show you what coaching and talent can do to an offensive line like that.
Yeah, exactly. And just hearing about that, it's just another one of those things, just bringing back all those great memories.
Yeah, right? Your championship memories, man. And that's what an offensive line does. Your offensive line, you could have, a mediocre quarterback, a mediocre defense, but if you have a great offensive line that raises the talent that you have offensively, then you could get away with having a mediocre defense and a mediocre quarterback,
Yeah, exactly. People don't realize it. That played a big factor into what led to me all those the memories, those memories that I'm able to say here about being able to tell you what being at the Super Bowl was like because of that.
Yeah, it's true. And so also on the Jets side, now we were talking about how Daniel Jones was looking pretty good with a couple of his young receivers. Well, they said that Aaron Rodgers was looking really, really good in the 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s earlier this week. He's fully back from rehab. So, if the Jets can get Aaron Rodgers on track and he could be, Aaron Rodgers from 2 or 3 years ago, man, then the Jets already are in so much better position than they were last year because, you just show not only the talent level, but the confidence level the team has when you have a guy back there like that.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like it's pretty much championship or bust with this team. It's a 2-3 year window. It's looking like that comparable to when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got Tom Brady. They had that 2-3 year window, and they had to get that job done within that time frame. They knew they didn't have enough. They only had so many years with the quarterback that age. It's a similar situation with Aaron Rodgers. It's go time. There's no waiting around. There's no bridge here. They have to do it quickly, like pronto.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Dan. And when you have a window like that, you can't take it for granted either. You have to understand that that the pressure is now, and I feel like last year that's something the Jets didn't do enough of. I felt like the Jets felt like, oh, hey, we got Aaron Rodgers, let's see what happens. They didn't really bring in a lot of weapons for him to utilize. They didn't really bring in a lot of protection on the offensive line. But now, when you look all around this team, you see, okay, they brought in, another talented player on in the receiver room in Mike Williams from the Chargers. They also drafted a kid in the 3rd round that's going to come in and get a lot of playing time right off the bat. Not to mention the fact that in the offensive line, they went out there and acquired a couple of pretty big pieces in John Simpson and Morgan Moses from the Baltimore Ravens, who, let's not forget, the Baltimore Ravens had a pretty darn good line last year, and those two guys were a big part of it. Not to mention the bringing in Tyron Smith from the Dallas Cowboys, who that guy looks like he is in the best shape I've ever seen. He's a brick wall, man. I don't know if you've seen any of the OTA picks so far, but this guy, there's a reason why, and I'm sure as a Giants fan from seeing him stand on the other side of the field for all those years. But this guy, Tyron Smith, is a brick wall, man.
Yeah, exactly. They did a great job answering all their needs pretty much, and now the pressure is on.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Nothing else needs to be said more than that. One last thing on the Jets before we move on to a little bit of baseball, before we close out with the hockey, is I did find it interesting that, man, it seems like the media just loves tweaking this guy, Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett's the Jets' offensive coordinator, who is the one of the better friends on the team, if not the best friend of Aaron Rodgers, which is the whole reason why he pretty much got brought in here last year in the first place. But he had a heated exchange in the press conference earlier today in regard to his job security, because reports came out over the winter, a couple of, over the past few weeks and months, that the Jets were prepared to bring in another offensive mind to not replace Hackett, but maybe demote him a little bit and get him a little bit less involved. So, I don't blame Hackett for taking a little bit of offense to that, especially when Aaron Rodgers, puts his full faith in him right now. I do want to see what a Nathaniel Hackett offense looks like, led by Aaron Rodgers. What do you think about Hackett getting a little bit upset with this today?
I don't blame him. We didn't really get to see that whole offense, everything come to fruition. What everything was planned around. So this is really the year that I feel that maybe they kind of need to let him see how that works out, at least to start the season.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. It's absolutely true. So, hey, if you're a Jet fan, you can not be happy with what you saw last year from Nathaniel Hackett. Obviously, no Jet fan was. But I mean, let's be honest. That was with Zach Wilson and a bunch of backup crappy quarterbacks. Let's see what this guy has with a year of Aaron Rodgers. So just have an open mind. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying he's going to be the next, offensive mind like one of the better offensive coordinators out there, but he's gonna be serviceable. Let's put it that way. And that's all he has to be with the Hall of Fame quarterback that we got back there right now. So just to keep it rolling along now here, I do want to check in on the Mets, unfortunately, as this team continues to torture us day in and day out. The Mets get swept out of Cleveland. They blew a 3-0 lead today. They lose the finale 6-3. Just another crappy game from this Mets team. They blow the game behind Diaz earlier this week. They lost yesterday 3-1. Now they come out today and blow game in which they had a 3-0 lead in the sixth inning. Dan, you're just angry with this Mets team because this has been frustrating. And the most frustrating thing about it is that it was easy to predict. Me and you knew this was coming all year.
Yeah, I just feared the worst with this pitching. I just feel like the offense is finally coming around, but that's the offense coming around. This pitching isn't really what we needed. David Stearns didn't do enough there. I mean, it just doesn't fly with this kind of pitching that only really gives you 5 innings. It's not. I mean, you had guys. We went from having guys that gave us at least 6 innings to 5 innings, having to lean up with more bullpen. I just had a scary feeling it was going to wear on us. We had to lean up. We had to lean too heavily on this bullpen, and it freaking reared its ugly head this game.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I don't know, man. I see, Mendoza tweaking the lineup and sticking Francisco Lindor at the top. Look, I've been a defender of Francisco Lindor for a long time, but man, what the hell is wrong with Francisco Lindor? Why does he suck at the beginning of the year every single year? And then by the time the Mets are out of it in July, that's when he'll start hitting. And, look, I don't want to kill the guy. I want to like Francisco Lindor. I was a big fan of the trade when they made it. But what is wrong with him? He is the worst superstar shortstop in baseball.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on here. Like, he freaking went through all these slow starts. And it's like it's freaking cost us again.
Yeah, I mean, it's May 22nd. And Met fans, and I'm telling you right now, because you have these Lindor defenders, it's kind of like I always cracked up at my boy who was a guest on our show last year, the great Jake Asman from ESPN Radio, who was on with us last season previewing the Jets and the Giants actually too. It was our NFL pregame our camp pre-show last year, where Jake Asman always called the people that were Jet fans that wouldn't give up on Zach Wilson truthers. And it always made me laugh because it was pretty funny and it kind of accurately described them. Now, I feel like because there are people where if you criticize Lindor online, people will jump down your throat. Oh, he's this, he's that. Look at the numbers. But I'm sorry. When was the last time Francisco Lindor got a clutch hit for the Mets? When? I want to sit here and praise the guy. I want to like him. I know he wants to do good here. But the fact is, he just hasn't. If you looked at last year's numbers, that's the most hollow season I've ever seen in my life. I'll give him credit for 2022 because 2022, the guy drove in 100 runs. He was a productive player. I enjoyed watching him. But 2021, the guy stunk. 2023, the guy stunk until the second half of the year when it didn't matter. And now 2024, he stinks again. I just want Lindor to be consistent, and he's just bad.
Yeah, the same thing. It's just like freaking why it's not to happen. Can he for once be consistent?
Yeah, and look, guys who I like too, guys who I'm glad got paid a couple of years ago by the Mets. Brandon Nimmo, who Nimmo I worry about less. I think Nimmo will find it eventually, and I'll give credit to McNeil for it looks like he's starting to heat up a little bit. But both those guys have been complete disappointments too. McNeil specifically, because McNeil's a guy who in 2019 and 2020 in the shortened year and 2022 when he actually did win the batting title looked like a guy who you could depend on to just be a bat to ball contact hitter, which is what you need in lineups sometimes. But when Jeff McNeil is coming out and hitting 250, 260, or 270, he's just not a useful player in the lineup. A guy with 9 home runs and 50 RBIs needs to be hitting 300. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like he's playing above his head. I feel like.
Well, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I worry about this Mets team a lot because when you look at this core, it's just tough to look at yourself and say, oh well, if they make this tweak, if they make that tweak. Now, the one guy I will defend is Pete Alonso because he's still coming up with big hits every once in a while. He's going to put his numbers up, and I will knock him because he did have a really bad first half of last season too, and then kind of pulled the Lindor, where the second half of the season when it didn't matter, he started putting up big numbers. I don't think it was as much of a stretch as Lindor last year, but still, he still did do that. But I will give Pete credit for this because I don't think the Mets have done a good enough job of putting protection in the lineup for Pete Alonso. Now, when you're a big bat, you need protection. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything to hit. You know what I mean? And I also think it's a bad move hitting Alonso in the number 2 slot right now, especially with Nimmo behind him, because he's still not going to get anything to hit. If you're a pitcher, Dan, if you're a major league pitcher, and you have the choice between pitching to Pete Alonso or Brandon Nimmo, who are you going to choose?
I'm probably gonna do that old abracadabra walk, as Keith calls it, to Nimmo.
Exactly. Or even if you don't, as you said, abracadabra walk it the good old SNY way, what you would do is throw him pitches out of the strike zone, and if you walk him, no big deal, but maybe you'll get him to chase. And I feel like a lot of the time when we see Alonso chasing balls out of the strike zone, it's just because he's trying to make something happen, and he doesn't have any protection in the lineup whatsoever. When Lindor had Alonso behind him in the lineup, at least you could say, okay, Lindor's got a little protection. But when Pete's hitting 3 or 4, normally he's hitting 2 now, which is stupid. But when Pete's hitting 3 or 4, he didn't have anybody protecting him. I feel like Mendoza is missing the point now because they finally have a guy in this lineup in JD Martinez that can provide a little protection for Pete, and they don't have Pete hitting ahead of him. You know what I mean? It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I just feel like he's messing this up, and I just have a feeling he's going to have to make changes in the batting order soon enough.
Well, he's tried. He's tried a couple of things. They had Lindor leading off. They bumped Nimmo down to the number 3 spot, but I don't know. I don't think much of it's helped. We got to keep our fingers crossed and hope that Francisco Alvarez is possibly on his way back soon, because that catcher spot in the lineup is a black hole. That is just terrible.
I think the other thing that really hurt us was Ronnie Mauricio being out.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see what he had this year, but unfortunately, the Mets, much like last year when they let Edwin Diaz play in a competition that doesn't matter and get hurt in it for the season, they let Ronnie Mauricio, who, look, I could understand if you're letting a minor league player participate in the Caribbean series and all that stuff that he was doing down over there in the Caribbean and stuff like that. But he should not. He was on the major league team last year for a while. He should not have been playing in that Caribbean series, and the Mets just
once again did Mets things and let him play in that, and now a vital piece to this team is gone for the full season. And I never expect to see him back at that same level again, to be honest, because sometimes that just happens, you know?
Yeah, I just hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I just hope this does not happen because this guy was. I feel like he was on his way to having some big moments. I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Dan. So, yeah, a lot of frustration with the Mets right now. Unfortunately, a lot of frustration that we see. But you know what? Before we turn our attention to the Rangers, I do want to give a little bit of credit to the Yankees, who, even though they've had some trouble with the Mariners for the last couple of days. They had a 4-1 lead on Monday that they blew. Uh, Clay Holmes really looking bad for the first time this year as the Mariners got to him and beat the Yankees 5-4. Then the Mariners followed that up with a big win yesterday to take the series, or I'm sorry, take the first two of the series. Now the Yankees are looking to win their first of this 4-game set tonight at Yankee Stadium. This is Bryce Miller against Nestor Cortez. What did you think about that blown save the other night for Clay Holmes, Dan? I mean, if the Yankees are going to go deep, we know, as me and you have been students of the game. We go back to obviously the days when John Wetland was closing for the Yankees, Mariano Rivera. Even when Rivera got hurt, they pulled out Rafael Soriano, who had a great run, and then they signed Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman. If you go back to the 70s, they even had guys like Sparky Lyle, back then. So the Yankees have, or even in the 80s, Dave Righetti. The Yankees have had a history of really great closers. And in my opinion, if the Yankees are going to do anything, they're going to need a great closer too. And look, I like Clay Holmes. Maybe he could be a great eighth inning guy, but I don't see Clay Holmes as being the closer of the future for the Yankees. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I just see a closer that looks vulnerable. It's something that I'm pretty sure a whole generation of Yankee fans is not used to. That they've gotten spoiled from seeing Mariano Rivera all these years.
Yeah, or even the other guys that we mentioned. I mean, think about that. Mariano Rivera goes down. They bring in Rafael Soriano. The guy goes to the All-Star game. Then they go out after Rivera retires. They bring in Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman. Those guys are home runs for a couple of years. Then after that, now they're stuck with Clay Holmes. So now you're finally, maybe a decade after the retirement of Mariano Rivera, Yankee fans are finally starting to say, oh, maybe the ninth inning isn't as easy as we always thought it was, right?
Yeah, they're saying pretty much what us Met fans have had to deal with all these years.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, the Yankees are getting their taste of Johnny Franco right now, and Braden Looper coming in as we had to suffer through all those years as Met fans. I know more Met fans probably look back fondly at the days of John Franco, but I don't know. I feel like no Met relief pitcher ever tortured me as much as John Franco did. But that's neither here nor there. And though, let's keep it rolling along here, Dan, as I think we're getting into the final segment right now, as we're going to be taking a look at the Eastern Conference Final. Dan, we both got the Rangers jerseys on tonight. There we go, showing our colors. There you go, right there. And man, everybody is psyched for this right now. Florida Panthers visiting the New York Rangers tonight. Game 1, Eastern Conference Finals. Puck drops at 8 p.m. As we're looking at this, about an hour and a half away. I mean, Dan, we've had almost a week to soak this in right now. You got to be excited to finally get this game underway tonight, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. It's like throwing these dates off. I just know I'm excited. I just feel like this is going to be something very similar to the Carolina series, that each and every one of these games are going to be very nerve-wracking. I just feel like.
Oh, you know that, man.
I just feel like, and I feel like this series, I just feel like this Rangers team seems to have shown that they've been able to keep pace, and that's what they need to do to win. As long as they do that, what they did with Carolina, they could win this. They just need to be able to keep pace with this team, and Igor needs to be Igor this whole series. I feel like we have a good chance if we keep, and especially there's going to be, especially in those moments where they're going to have to keep the game close, and that's what they need to do, and they can do that, and this is a very winnable series, and
No doubt about it.
it's going to be a very winnable series. It's going to be very nerve wracking. I can tell you that. I'm just gonna be making a lot of noise. It's probably gonna go into a little bit later than the past couple of playoff series because now we got 8 o'clock start time. So hopefully everyone on my block is okay with that. I know there's a house across the street from me. I don't really know them so well, but I see a Rangers flag across the street, so I think they won't have a problem with them. At least I know they'll get it. Why if they hear a lot of noise from my house, they'll see a house name and they'll notice. Oh yeah, he's a Rangers fan because there's a Rangers fan living there because they see the Rangers flag in front of my house. I'm sure you saw the picture. I brought out our giant Rangers flag for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the picture. So that's,
Yep.
I'm sure they know. Hopefully, there'll be a couple more Ranger fans. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be people that don't know. Hopefully, people here know. Hopefully, they understand. They are aware on the news what's going on because it's going to be a lot of noise coming out of my living room, and I can tell you it's going to be a lot of nerve wracking. I cannot tell. It's like anyone that saw to me moments after the game, they have no idea what they're going to say. Like my voice shot, probably a lot of cursing going on. I don't know. It's going to be a lot. And medics are standing by.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be a big medic series right now for all Ranger fans, and I'm sure Florida Panther fans too. We were talking about the way this series is going to go down. I think a big thing for this series too is I want to see how Mika Zibanejad looks at the 5-on-5. If the Rangers are getting really good play at a Mika on 5-on-5, then they are in really good shape. But the bulk of this series, in my opinion, is going to come down to special teams. And if the Rangers can continue to lock teams down on the power play, Florida has a very good power play. If the Rangers can continue to lock them down, that is going to really frustrate the Panthers and make them desperate. And it's all about scoring that timely power play goal. The Rangers have been really, really good in the power play, especially early on in the series, throughout this postseason so far. But it's all going to be about scoring that timely goal when you need it. If the Panthers take a penalty in a big situation, you have to make them pay for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I also predict in this series, Vincent Trocheck is going to have some big moments in this series.
Yeah, man.
I'm calling it right now. Vincent Trocheck is going to have some big moments in this series.
He's been a go-to guy all postseason long. One of the best face-off winners throughout the postseason so far. 6 goals, 8 assists, and once again playing one of his former teams. He's playing the team that he was drafted by, the Florida Panthers. So that's always going to be an interesting matchup. It's really going to be very interesting, and things are going to get even more interesting, Dan, as we are getting information from the reporters that are covering the Rangers right now, and reports indicate that Philip Hedl, who, if you remember, dressed in Game 3 of the second round series against the Hurricanes, but never again after that, reports indicate that Hedl will be slotted back into the third line with Wenberg and Kakko, meaning that he's going to be on the left side, and they're going to bump Will Cooley down a slot to the fourth line to be out there with VC and whoever they have on the fourth line center, Barclay Goodrow. So that's going to be interesting. That means that both Brodzinski and Rempe will be scratched tonight, which I don't mind. What do you think about the juggling of this lineup, Dan? One sec. I wasn't too fond of them shoehorning Brodzinski in there, but a lot of people have had a problem with Rempe sitting, and I don't mind that as much as long as you're getting Heedle in there,
Yeah, this one I don't really mind it as much as I did. I feel during the Carolina series. I feel like the Carolina series was a series you kind of needed Rempe in there because I feel like there was a couple of guys, couple of goons in there, and it needed to be in check. I feel like that made one of those things that don't really show up in the stats that you kind of needed a player like Rempe. This series, I feel it's a little bit different, even though there are similarities between how that Carolina series was in this one, but I feel this one might be just a little bit different. So I understand that. Also, I do want to say something else about fans that are road tripping. Remember that whole thing that happened during Carolina, how unless you were buying on resale, you couldn't buy, direct from the box office ticket, the road games in Carolina. This one, I believe if I'm correct, you don't have to worry about this one for this series.
Yeah, Florida doesn't care quite as much about the
Yep,
Carolina.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of Ranger fans in the stands for this one, and I think they'll be able to. I'm sure they'll be showing up full force on the road during the road games as well. I have to admit, if I was doing one of the road games, attending one of the road games, I'd show up. I'd bring out I'd be showing up, walking out of the plane. I'd be on the plane wearing my Rangers tropical shirt. And yes, that's right. I do have tropical shirts for all my favorite teams, by the way.
Well, yeah, that's a beautiful stadium they've got down there too. I've actually been down there twice. I was down there in 2015 and last year, 2023, to see the Rangers and the Panthers both times. So, and look, Ranger fans always show up, so there's going to be a lot of blue in that sea of red out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Panthers fans protect their home ice, especially the fact that this is the second playoff matchup ever between these two teams. The only prior matchup was in 1997 when the Rangers beat them in 5. They actually lost the first game 3-0 to Florida and then beat them 4 straight after that. One of those games being the game where Gretzky had the natural hat trick in it.
Yep, I remember that one. That was maybe I was literally a teenager back then.
Yeah.
I may have been 16 or 17 or something like that back. 97. I think I forgot how old I was maybe 15 or 16 back then. I don't remember, but
I was 10. I remember I was 10.
Yeah. I just know I was somewhere in my mid-teens when that happened. And
yeah.
I just know that was such an epic moment. And little did I knew that would be the last time I would see the Rangers in the playoffs for a couple of years after that season. There was a little bit of a playoff drought, which felt weird because I had gone through a number of years in my life consecutive of Rangers playoff appearances. So it was kind of odd the last, and then it was like I hardly looked at playoff hockey during that stretch of years. I hardly looked at playoff hockey until that 2006 season came along. So and that began a long stretch of Rangers in the playoffs, and before another stretch where it kind of went dead. And now we weren't seeing any Rangers in the playoffs for a couple of stretch, and then finally that playoff drought got broken a couple of years ago, and now we're seeing that back to another run of the Rangers making consecutive playoff appearances, and hopefully this run of consecutive playoff appearances lives up to that big moment, gets that big moment.
Yeah, and they, as you said, they went from May of '97 till April of 2006 without having a playoff game. For the Rangers, I actually was back at the first playoff game at the Garden to break that streak in April of 2006. And that didn't exactly go too well as the Rangers ended up losing that game 3-0, and it was 2-0 before I even sat down in my seat. So not exactly a great game to go to, but hey, at least that's done. The Rangers got that one out of the way, and now, as you said, we're back in a new stretch of Rangers playoff success over here. One thing I did want to take a look at too, Dan, is what do you think about the Rangers being the Rodney Dangerfield of the NHL playoffs right now, as they get no respect at all? The Rangers are the President's Trophy winners. They won the division, and they were not the favorites in the series last round against the Hurricanes. And once again, even with home ice, the Rangers are the underdogs to the Florida Panthers in this series for the second straight series. And to be honest, I actually like it because I can't wait to prove everybody wrong and show them what fools they were for doubting the Rangers in the first place. But what do you think about this lack of respect for the Rangers, Dan?
I think it's utter stupidity of Las Vegas, even more stupidity from Las Vegas than the fact that whole thing, you've heard that whole thing I say about Las Vegas, that if Ticketmaster was a city, it would be Las Vegas, because there's hidden fees on every fucking thing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and it's definitely no respect for the Rangers. That's why it made me think of Rodney Dangerfield, because I'm thinking to myself, man, the Rangers go out there, and this isn't a fluke either. This is the second time in 3 years they're in the Eastern Conference Final. This is, in my opinion, as much as we're going to talk about it in a sec, as much as I love Bobrovsky as a goalie, and he's a fantastic goalie, 2-time Vezina Trophy winner, I still would take Igor over him right now. And as a matter of fact, let's get into that right now. Bobrovsky, Shesterkin, Dan, two great goalies. You know, right now Bobrovsky's 8-3 with a 2.37 goals against, the 9.06 save percentage. Shesterkin's 8-2 with a 2.40 goals against, 9.24 save percentage. So Igor's got him up on a couple of little things there, but very close statistically. What do you think about this goaltending matchup?
I just feel like Igor's got the more experience. He's played on high pressure teams. I feel like Igor has the edge because he's played on teams that have that expectation around them of winning.
Well, Dan, Dan. I know what you're saying, but you can't say Igor has more experience. Bobrovsky has been around for 10 years, and Bobrovsky was in the Cup final last year with the Florida Panthers, which the Rangers have not done under Igor. So you do have to give that experience factor to Bobrovsky.
Yeah, I have to give that experience factor for Bobrovsky. But I don't know. There's just something like laser focused about Igor. Like there's just something else going on.
Yeah, well, I think what you're thinking, and the same thing that I think, is that, look, Bobrovsky is probably a future Hall of Famer. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But at the point they both are at in their careers right now, as great as Bobrovsky still is, I would take Igor over Bobrovsky every time. Right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I do got to say something about Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky is, of course, a guy forever linked to one of the funniest graphic era in the history of sports broadcasting. Have you ever seen a screen cap of this that went viral on the internet when they messed up the spelling of his name, or I guess they thought it was they thought it was pronounced like Bubtiski?
Oh yeah, I don't think I saw that.
Yeah, I gotta find this meme for you because it was just someone posted this and I had a Beavis and Butthead moment laughing at this era that I don't know who made this era. I don't know. I know something. I don't know. I don't know the way this guy made this graphical error because I do have to admit sometimes you get some people with some European last names that are kind of tough to pronounce, but
it's funny you say that.
This is the funniest mistake I've seen.
As a matter of fact, I just found it right here. Let's see if we can. Boob Titsky.
Yeah.
There you go, everybody. That's exactly what Dan's talking about.
Yeah, that is one of the funniest graphic eras in the history of sports broadcasting, right there.
You're right. You're right. I don't think I've seen that one until now, but you're right. That is pretty damn funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
Oh my god. And all right, everybody. I think that's just about going to do it for us tonight. Florida Panthers at Rangers, Game 1, Eastern Conference Finals tonight. Just over an hour. Yeah, you got that right, Dan. Now, Dan, before we go, we got to give our predictions. I actually said Hurricanes in 6 last round. I believe you said Hurricane. I'm sorry. We both said Rangers over the Hurricanes in 6 last round. I believe so. What's your prediction for this round now?
I just have a feeling Rangers are going to win this at 5.
Wow, 5. Okay. I'll take that.
Yeah. I just think I feel like the Rangers have this momentum after beating such a tough opponent in the Hurricanes.
Yeah, no, I could see that, riding that momentum all the way. I could definitely see that. For me, though, I don't know. I always feel like I always go with 6, but I just think Rangers in 6. I think, Florida is a hell of a team. You have to remember that guy, Sam Reinhart, man, he's got 57 goals this year, 5 in the playoffs. So he's got 62 for the year. That guy is a hell of a player. Obviously, they brought in Tarasenko. Bobrovsky back there, Barkov. This is a team that is so deep that I would be shocked if the Rangers were able to finish them off that quick. I think even 6 might be a little early. This series, unfortunately, to me, feels a lot like the Knicks-Pacers series where it's destined to go 7. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it does kind of feel like that right now. But I'm still going to say Rangers over the Panthers in 6. Dan, you're saying Rangers in 5?
Yep. And I
right.
have a feeling at least one of these games is going to end up being a Rangers win in overtime.
Yeah, I could see even more than 1. But, yeah, I agree with you. At least 1 is going overtime. No doubt about that. Everybody. So I hope everybody is buckled in and ready for a hell of an Eastern Conference final. Pretty good one at West, too. Before we wrap up here, Dan, the Western Conference final matchup is the Oilers, who won Game 7, taking on the Dallas Stars, who have been sitting around waiting for a winner in that series now. So, first off, let me ask you this. Who do you think is going to win that series? And if you had your choice, who would you rather face?
I don't know. I'd rather face the Dallas Stars because I just feel like that. I just feel like that they and I feel like I have good confidence against the. I feel like we could also beat Edmonton, but I just feel like if you end up in too many penalties, and that's where the mistake happens. I feel like.
No, that's true. That's true. The one thing I will say is, Dallas with Gettinger has a far better goaltender. And Dallas, I feel like, is the more structured defensive team, which I think could give the Rangers more trouble. So I'm going to say I think Dallas is going to win the series, but I'm also going to say I hope Edmonton wins the series because I think Edmonton would be an easier opponent from the Rangers because as good as they are offensively, and you are right, if the Rangers are putting themselves in the box against Edmonton, it's going to be a long series. But I think if the Rangers can remain disciplined and play against Edmonton the way they did the first 2 rounds of the playoffs and hopefully in this Florida series too, I think that that Edmonton would be a much easier matchup for the Rangers to control than the Dallas Stars, who are a pretty deep team, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's gonna. I can tell you. I think either way, it's gonna be nerve-wracking all the way. Like my gut feeling has a feeling the Rangers are gonna win this whole thing. I still have a gut feeling they're gonna win the whole thing, but I just have a feeling they're gonna make me nervous at several points along the way. I mean, it's gonna. I meant, it's gonna. I feel feeling the road's gonna end with a guy in blue picking up the cup. But damn it, it's gonna be a nerve-wracking journey, and
Yep.
there's gonna be they need some medics standing by. I might be like have this shocked look on my face if we win it. Then they will be like, did we just win it? I don't know how I'm gonna react to this. I don't know how I'm gonna react to it. And the crazy part is we're probably gonna be in it almost 99.9% sure if it happens, we will be in the same room when it happens.
Absolutely, buddy.
So there's going to be someone that's going to have to keep an eye on both of us.
So a lot to look forward to in this playoff run, Dan. It is going to be, it's already been one for the ages, and it's only going to keep getting better with every game the Rangers keep pushing. So game 1 coming up in just over an hour. Hope everybody enjoyed this edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. Before we get out of here, Dan, you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, I'm gonna have a course by Trackside Minute. You got Patreon guys, subscribers get early access to, just like you get early access to all the shows. Also, my YouTube videos, you guys get early access to my YouTube videos also that I post. Also, my Twitter account, Bobo103NYC, you see there. Instagram, Bobo718DK. And of course, that same username on Thread. And my YouTube account, by the way, is one word Daniel Curlin. And as I said, all you subscribing to this Patreon that are watching Patreon, you guys also get early access to my YouTube videos whenever I post something new on YouTube.
That's right. So make sure to follow Dan and support him as much as you can. If you're seeing this right now on Patreon live as we're recording this, thank you for being a subscriber. But if you're seeing this on Thursday, then you can be seeing this live. All you got to do is go to patreon.com and sign up, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. It's only $5 a month, and you get a whole bunch of fun stuff with me and Dan, so we appreciate the support. Also, you can check me out, my last name, @KramerNY on Twitter. You can check the show out at @BSith_podcast. And don't forget our Instagram as well, Best Seat in the House podcast. So, we're also on Kick, Best Seat in the House pod, and we're also on Twitch. So please search us out. I'm sure wherever you're looking, we got some kind of media there. So we appreciate all the support from everybody as always. And don't forget also, Bobo made a special guest appearance earlier this week on the Davey Mac Sports program. So please go to Eastside Dave's channel, Eastside Dave TV, and check that out too. It's always great. As a matter of fact, I'll include a link to that video in the description so you can check it out anytime you want. Shout out to the great Eastside Dave, by the way, right, Dan?
Yep, exactly. And by the way, I don't know what they're saying because this mic has been working great.
What's that?
I don't know what they've been saying on the Dave show, but this microphone has been working great.
There we go. There we go.
Am I right? This microphone's been working great.
No, the microphone has been working very well, and definitely Dave was giving us a little bit of a hard time, but he was just joking around. And hey, we are striving to improve our production quality, so we will continue to do everything possible to improve our production quality. We appreciate everybody that sticks with us and watches the show every week. Shout out to Dave, like we said. Shout out to Roy and the great Bobby Tamburo over there as well. So thank you everybody for tuning in and catching our show again this week. For Rob Kramer and the great Daniel Bobo Curlin, this is the Best Seat in the House podcast. Let's go Rangers, and we'll see you next week, everybody.
Yep. Yeah, that was a good